You're probably aware that the logistics of the current Formula One calendar isn't the best from a sustainability point of view. There seems to be no thought into the order of the 23 races on the current calendar. Now, Formula One are aiming for net zero by 2030, and the biggest area that they need to focus on is the logistics. 45% of the total carbon emissions in Formula One comes from logistics. Another 28% of the total emissions from Formula One comes from business travel. Now this includes flying the individuals, team members, Formula One employees out to the races to attend the Grand Prix. So almost 3/4 of the total emissions in Formula One includes getting the equipment and personnel to the races. I wrote a Python code to calculate the most optimal Formula One calendar, with the shortest distance between all 23 tracks of the 2023 season. Now before I get into this video, I do want to caveat a few things. I know this isn't 100% accurate. Teams don't travel from race to race, they fly home between races, typically to their headquarters, and all teams apart from Haas are based in Europe. Although Haas do have employees split across 3 sites in the UK, US and Italy. From the remaining 9 teams, 6 of them are based in the UK. Equipment on the pit walls, the paddock, IT equipment and cars and tools during double and triple headers will be sent from race to race when there's no need to send this back to Europe between races. But most of the time, the majority of equipment and personnel will go back to the headquarters between races. So when I'm calculating the shortest distance between tracks, I'm not taking going back to the headquarters into account, but there are some things that do go from track to track. Another caveat is contracts. Tracks will sign a long-term contract with Formula One to keep their circuit on the calendar. Bahrain is the longest and is currently contracted up to 2036. Parts of the contract will agree the time of year that they race, and this will be a specific weekend. Tracks like Monaco and now circuits such as Las Vegas and Miami require a huge amount of planning and preparation to get them ready for the Formula One race. The teams can't just rock up on any weekend and start racing. And this brings us on to the next point, and that is weather. With the floods recently in Imola, it's clear to see that the weather can have a huge impact on Formula One. Certain regions have extreme weathers at certain times of the year. For example, racing in Montreal in winter months wouldn't be a good idea due to the extremely cold temperatures and the high likelihood of heavy snowfall. Even things such as religion have to be considered. In Bahrain, considerations are given to avoid scheduling the race during the month of Ramadan. So I've gone over a small amount of the factors that play into the scheduling of a Formula One calendar. Now let's have a quick look into the theory of how this was calculated. Now the theory behind this is to do with the travelling salesman problem. Now this is a problem in computer science and mathematics that deals with finding the most efficient route given a set of points. The objective is to minimise the total distance or time required to visit each point once. The travelling salesman problem has many real-world applications, such as route optimization for delivery, circuit board drilling, DNA sequencing, and planning telescope observations. So I've written a Python code to calculate this algorithm given the locations of all 23 races on the 2023 Formula One calendar. Now this is quite a straightforward problem when the points are on a flat 2D surface, but when you're considering the distance across the globe, taking into account things such as the curvature of the Earth, this is a much more complex problem. So I've located the coordinates of all 23 tracks, and this will calculate the shortest distance between them all. The normal Formula One calendar starts in Bahrain, and personally I love it as a season opener, so I'm going to keep Bahrain as the starting track. We had to start somewhere, and this is a personal favourite of mine. We then move on to Qatar, and the distance between Bahrain and Qatar is only 112 kilometers. Much shorter than the Bahrain or Qatar Grand Prix. We've only raced here once before, but going back here in 2023, I'm looking forward to the racing. After Qatar, we go over to Abu Dhabi, which is typically the season finale in recent years, at a distance of 337 kilometers. The Abu Dhabi Grand Prix is known for its unique twilight race, with the second half of the race taking place under floodlights. I'm not a big fan of this track, and I'd like to get it out the way quite quickly in the Formula 1 calendar. We then move on to Saudi Arabia and the Jeddah Street Circuit. Now, this is a new addition to the Formula 1 calendar, and we've had 3 races here now. The distance between Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia is 1,616 kilometers, so a slight bigger jump between these two tracks. We then fly over to Azerbaijan with a distance of 2,321 kilometers. Baku Street Circuit winds its way through the historic city of Azerbaijan, and it's known for its long straights and tight twisty sections, including the iconic narrow castle section. Finishing off with those 5 tracks from the Middle East, we move over to Europe, and the next track on the calendar will be Hungary with a distance of 2,555 kilometers. The Hungaroring is a tight and twisty circuit located near Budapest, and it's known for producing exciting races due to its limited overtaking opportunities and challenging corners. Now we're in Central Europe, there are many circuits that are extremely close together. Moving from Hungary to Austria at a distance of only 340 kilometers, but the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg is a relatively short track, and it's known for its fast corners and large elevation changes. We then move over to Imola at a distance of only 397 kilometers. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get to see the Imola Grand Prix this year due to the floods that happened in the local area, but this was the correct call to call off the race. The public services there would have been under huge pressure, and my thought just goes out to all the residents that were affected by the floods. Now, moving on from one Italian classic to another, we go to Monza at a distance of only 238 kilometers. Monza is one of the oldest and fastest circuits on the current calendar, known for its long straights and the iconic Parabolica corner. Monza is a loved venue for both drivers and fans. Leaving Italy, we go down to Monaco at a distance of 257 kilometers. The narrow street circuit winds its way through the principalities, demanding precision and concentration from the drivers. After Monaco, we will fly over to Spain at a distance of 485 kilometers. Now, Catalonia is a popular testing venue for Formula 1 as it's a well-balanced circuit with a variety of corners. They've reprofiled the final chicane into just a single corner this year, so I'm looking forward to the improved racing that we're going to see from that. After Spain, we fly over to Belgium for Spa at a slightly longer distance of 1,026 kilometers. Spa is a legendary track and is known for its unpredictable weather and challenging corners such as Rouge and Radion. It is considered one of the most exciting and demanding circuits on the calendar. At close proximity to Spa, we have Zandvoort at just 237 kilometers, the second shortest distance between any two circuits on this current calendar. Zandvoort returned to Formula 1 after a long absence, and it is a classic circuit with fast and flowing sections, including the famous banked corner. We finally move on to the final European race on the current calendar in Great Britain. Silverstone is one of the most iconic and historic tracks in Formula 1, and it never fails to provide great racing. At a distance of just 380 kilometers, again, another short flight over to the UK. Now, I thought at the end of the European races, at 14 races into the calendar, this would probably be a good spot for a mid-season break, and with the next races over in America, a lot of the equipment can be shipped. Now, this is a lot more efficient than flying or driving the equipment, and with the month off, this would provide plenty of time to ship that equipment across the world. So moving on to Canada, we fly over at a distance of 5,137 kilometers. Now, the circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal is a semi-permanent street circuit. It is a challenging track with a mix of high-speed straights and tight chicanes, and it's known for the famous Wall of Champions. After Canada, we fly down to Miami at a distance of 2,255 kilometers. Now, I think it's fair to say the 2023 Miami Grand Prix was slightly better than it was in 2022, but it's not a classic circuit by any means. I think if Formula 1 want to keep this on the calendar to keep fans happy they need to make a few tweaks to this track to provide a little bit better racing. We then fly over to Texas at a distance of 1,768 kilometers for arguably the most underrated circuit on the calendar, Circuit of the Americas. This modern circuit has become a popular venue for Formula One, and it offers a variety of corners inspired by famous tracks worldwide. It has arguably one of the best turn ones on the Formula One calendar, and it has a great S section like in Silverstone and Interlagos. After COTA, we fly down to Mexico at a distance of 1,202 kilometers. Now, the Mexico City circuit is known for its high altitude, which affects the car's performance. They can run quite a high drag setup and not be affected by this due to the less dense air. It also features a unique stadium that creates a great atmosphere for spectators. Now, I like racing in Mexico, but I think this track is one of the worst on the calendar, and it is probably my least favourite purpose-built circuit we currently race on. To finish off in America, we fly down to the newest race on the calendar, the Las Vegas Grand Prix, at a distance of 2,432 kilometers. We've still got a long time to wait for Las Vegas, so we'll see how the racing ends up, but if it's anything like Miami, I don't think Formula One fans are going to be too happy about the racing. Flying over to Asia now for the final 4 races of the calendar, we have Japan at 9,186 kilometers. Suzuka is a favourite among drivers due to its challenging layout and unique figure 8 configuration. It features a variety of corners, including the famous 130R. We then fly 537 kilometers down to Singapore for the Marina Bay Street Circuit, which is a challenging and bumpy street circuit that is run at night and is known for its tight and twisty layout and offers limited overtaking. We then fly down to Australia at a distance of 6,058 kilometers for the Melbourne Street Circuit. This is also a semi-permanent track like Montreal, and offers a mix of fast and technical sections. Now, this leaves us one final track, and I didn't choose this to be the final track, but I think this would make the absolute best final race of the season, and that would be Interlagos. This is the furthest distance between any 2 tracks at 13,063 kilometers. Interlagos, located in Sao Paulo, Brazil, is a historic track with a great layout, including the iconic Senna S section. I think all Formula One fans would agree finishing in Interlagos would be one of the best season finales we could have, and would cap the Formula One season off much better than the racing we have in Abu Dhabi. Now, that is the most optimal Formula One calendar you can have out of the current 23 tracks, starting with Bahrain. So the total distance between the 23 tracks on the current calendar is 132,165 kilometers. With Earth's circumference just above 40,000 kilometers, this equates to 3.3 times around the Earth, and this doesn't include travelling back to the team's headquarters. Now, this new revised calendar is a distance of 56,441 kilometers, slightly larger than the Earth's circumference and 2.3 times more efficient than the current calendar. So this is clearly a huge reduction in carbon emissions, and I think this is what Formula One needs to be aiming for 2030. So in 2019, the Formula One estimation of carbon emissions was 256,551 tons of CO2. This meant that the travel between races accounted for 177,020 tons of CO2 released into the atmosphere. Now, this is obviously a huge number, but it's hard to put this context into scale. 1 ton of CO2 is about equal to the electricity consumption used by 0.65 households across a whole year, or half a year of driving a petrol car on average. For the capture of this 1 ton of CO2 emissions, you will be required to grow 50 trees across 1 year. So it's a huge amount of carbon that is being released by Formula One. So again, I just want to reinstate that this isn't a solution to the current Formula One calendar. I'm aware of all the restrictions of hosting 23 races in a 38-week season, including a summer break, but this just shows there is room for optimizing the current calendar, and with Formula One aiming for net zero by 2023, this in my opinion is where the majority of Formula One need to focus on. Thanks for watching to the end. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.